Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel. My name is Mike. I'm continuing my Week 2 NFL previews and analysis. This video is for the game between the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. This game will be played at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Both teams coming in at 1-0. The Colts with a win last week at home, squeaking by the Raiders, and the Dolphins with an impressive road win within the conference, beating the Browns up in Cleveland. And for the Dolphins, I thought it was an impressive win last week because they were not able to run the ball, which is something they need to improve. But Ryan Tannehill was good enough to sort of guide them to a win. I thought the defense for the Dolphins played well, but from the offensive standpoint, Tannehill was effective. I thought he showed a lot of growth from last year. He was clicking with Brian Hartline from Ward 1, just like last year. You saw Mike Wallace complain after the game about not getting the ball. Wallace probably has to realize in that spot that after a win, young team on the road, that's probably not the time to complain about not getting the ball. We'll see how that sort of manifests itself as the season goes on with Mike Wallace. But, as a whole, that offense needs to get better running the ball. I think it needs to start this week against a better opponent. It's certainly in the Colts. Now the Colts don't have a great defense, so it's a good team for the Dolphins to really work on establishing the run. Again, I like what I saw from Tannehill. The defensive side of the ball for the Dolphins, how could you not like what you saw? I think that's a big cause for concern in turn for the Colts this week, whose offensive line did not play good last week, which I'll get to in a second. But you look at that Dolphins defense, 6 sacks last week of Brandon Weeden, 2.5 of those by Cameron Wake. They're going to need to put pressure on Andrew Luck this week because the difference between the two teams, certainly between the Browns and now the Colts, is the fact that if they don't get to Andrew Luck, they'll burn him. And I think the Dolphins have the personnel to rush only 4 guys, rush just their defensive line at Andrew Luck, which will definitely put them in better spot as far as covering the pass. I think they're still a little bit weak in the secondary. I don't think they played a team that could exploit them last week, but I think this will be a big test for the Miami secondary. How do they hold up against Andrew Luck and the Colts? And now you look at from the Colts standpoint, the Colts squeaked out that win last week. There's no question about it. They got out to a big lead. They had a key Andrew Luck drive in the fourth quarter to pull out a win. And you shouldn't be surprised at this point when Andrew Luck has a good game as far as pulling out wins in the fourth quarter. I think he had 6 or 7 of those last year. He starts out 2013 with one of those as well. But with that said, that offensive line has to protect him better. If you keep him upright and give him time to throw, he doesn't have prolific weapons, but he has good enough weapons in whether it's Reggie Wayne, newly acquired Darius Hayward-Bay, T.Y. Hilton, and the two tight ends, Fleener and Allen. He has enough to make stuff happen there. I think Ahmad Bradshaw will get better as the year goes on with that running game, but in order for the running game to get better, in order for Luck to really reach his full potential, they need that offensive line to hold it together. And there's a lot of guys they brought in via free agency or via the draft to sort of stabilize that offensive line, and it just didn't look good at all last Sunday. And we'll see if that's a function of not having the chemistry yet or just not being that good. We're only going to find that out as the season goes on. I think with the Colts defense, what you're seeing as well, it was sort of a lot of the same problems they had last year. A small defense, not particularly that good, to be honest. And I thought you saw the Raiders have a lot better game offensively, I think, than anyone expected last week. They weren't crazy good and prolific, but when you think about what you were expecting from the Raiders and Terrell Pryor and the game Terrell Pryor had, both passing the ball and especially running the ball on that Colts defense, I know I left that game a little bit surprised about how, based on how close that game actually was. So I think the Colts are definitely headed in the right direction because they have, in my mind, one of the top 10 best quarterbacks in the league in Andrew Luck, a guy who I think is going to get even better this year. But they need to keep him upright. I think that's going to be a major problem for them in this game. And quite frankly, I don't like the Colts defense against the weapons that the Dolphins do have in Hartline and Wallace and Gibson. And, although I don't think Miami will dominate running the ball, I think they'll do better than they did last week. And this is one of the upsets I'm picking this week. Not a big upset because the Indianapolis is only a 3-point favorite, but I like Miami to go on the road and upset the Colts. I think the one situation Miami can't leave themselves in is for this game to be too close late in the game because that's when Andrew Luck shines. But I think Miami will come to play, and for all the reasons I said, I think they pull out the win. Miami +3 on the road against Indianapolis. Let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at SNewsAnalysis. Guys, I'm previewing every game every week here, talking sports on here all the time. So be sure to subscribe. Thanks again for listening, and have a great night.